Hi, I'm Parth.
And I'm Christopher. We both work in technical support at SAS.
In this video, we will be discussing SAS University Edition and Virtualization Technology, which is also referred to as VTX or AMD-v. In order to use SAS University Edition, your computer will need to have both 64-bit hardware and virtualization technology.
Virtualization technology has been around for quite some time, but it became commercially widespread in the early 2000s. Nowadays, most computers have virtualization, or at least the ability to enable it. Virtualization allows you to run an operating system on top of an existing operating system.
Right. Think of it like a computer within a computer. SAS University Edition creates this virtual computer to host SAS Studio to your web browser. When a computer doesn't have access to virtualization, SAS University Edition is unable to launch properly. You may be familiar with this if your system has run into the following error.
This error message indicates that your system is unable to access virtualization technology, meaning either your system does not have 64-bit hardware, does not support virtualization, or virtualization is disabled in your computer's BIOS settings.
The first thing you should do is verify that your computer has both 64-bit hardware and that your processor supports virtualization technology. You can use the SAS note linked in this video's description to check your system's compatibility. Unfortunately, if your system does not meet these requirements, you won't be able to run SAS University Edition. As an alternative solution, you may want to look into SAS On Demand for academics. If you're taking a class, please be sure to make sure that you speak with your instructor before using SAS On Demand for academics, as there are a couple of differences between the two that might not align with your course.
However, if your system does meet the SAS University Edition technical requirements and you're still facing the previous error message, virtualization is likely disabled in your computer's firmware settings. In this video, we're going to go over the general process for enabling virtualization in a computer's firmware.
The BIOS, or UEFI, is a system firmware that handles low-level system interactions. The configuration of this firmware determines important system runtime variables, including virtualization technology.
Sometimes computer manufacturers decide to leave virtualization disabled by default. In these cases, SAS University Edition will fail to launch. We're going to show you how to access your computer's firmware settings in order to enable virtualization. Keep in mind that many different systems have different ways to access these firmware settings. The most common methods are a key press during the boot process. This is usually the escape key or the F2 key, but you need to consult your computer's user guide or online resources to determine your computer's specific process in order to access these settings.
Before we begin, please be advised that changes to the BIOS settings outside of virtualization may result in damage to your computer if not handled appropriately. Please be very careful modifying your BIOS settings, as SAS is not responsible for any adverse effects from these system changes. If you do not feel comfortable making these changes in the BIOS settings, we strongly recommend working with a local IT group or your computer's manufacturer to make the changes described in the following steps.
The system we have today utilizes an F2 interrupt during the startup process. This simply means that when the computer starts up, I hold F2 in order to break normal startup and access the BIOS settings.
Once interrupted at post using F2, the system will automatically go into the BIOS settings menu. Remember, your system may not use F2 to enter the BIOS settings. Some computers may show the key briefly during startup.
At this point, you'll want to use your keyboard's arrow keys to navigate through the BIOS screens. For our system, virtualization technology shows up under the Advanced tab. Again, this location may vary depending on your system, but we are just looking for the option to enable virtualization technology.
Once you locate virtualization technology in your BIOS menu, use your arrow keys to highlight the option and press enter. This will bring up a toggle menu. From here, use the arrow keys to navigate to enabled and press enter to turn on virtualization for your system.
Having enabled virtualization, it's now very important to save the new settings so that your system will reflect these changes. If you don't save the changes, SAS University Edition will continue to face the same previous error message. Once you choose Save Changes and Exit, your system should automatically reboot with the new settings. Some machines may simply shut down, so you may need to power your system back on manually.
At this point, you should now be able to launch SAS University Edition. We have seen some cases where SAS University Edition will run into a new error after enabling virtualization. If you cannot launch SAS University Edition after enabling virtualization technology, try removing the SAS University Edition V-app from VirtualBox or VMware Player and then re-import it. This resets the virtual appliance back to the default settings.
Again, please remember, changes to the BIOS outside of virtualization may result in damage to your computer, and SAS is not responsible for any adverse effects that may result from these changes. If you have any technical issues regarding installing SAS University Edition, please use the web link to submit a problem to SAS Technical Support. You can also contact SAS Technical Support through email at support@sas.com or by phone in the US and Canada at 800-727-0025. If you're outside of the United States and Canada, please use the web link to find your local SAS office contact information. We hope that this was helpful, and thanks for watching.